Hi, I'm Drew Saur, and today we're going to talk about another one of those nebulous terms, specifically how to think strategically. And so this video is really for people who are looking for a framework for how to address this question, either because you want to become a better strategic thinker or because you've gotten that nebulous feedback that says you need to think more strategically. So strategic thinking, like executive presence, which I did a video on previously, is one of those terms that can mean a million different things to a million different people. So what we're going to do today is walk through a simple framework for how you can start to think about this question. I'm going to give you kind of 2 dimensions and 3 questions that you can use. And what I want you to do is, as you think through this, there are really 2 questions you need to answer. So the first is, what do you want it to be? Ultimately, this is about your career. So when you think about strategic thinking, how does this narrow down to what you want if you were to do this for a role? And then I want you to also think about, what is your current organization, boss, ecosystem define it as? Because ultimately, to get your career to where you want it to go, we're trying to find a match between what you want it to be and what your current role actually needs it to be. So we're going to try to get that fit. So as you go through this, think about it both from your own perspective as well as that of your current organization or your target organization if you're trying to get a new role. Okay? So here we go. So the first is, what are the dimensions that you're thinking about? Because strategic thinking, again, can mean a whole bunch of different things depending on where you are. So the first question is topic. What are you going to think strategically about? You can do it with almost anything. A lot of people think about it from a product perspective. Where is this product going to go? You can do it from a technology perspective. You can do it from an organization perspective. What is the organization going to look like in the future? You can do it from a finance perspective. How can you think strategically about leveraging your assets to get better returns? You can think strategically about taxes. There are people who do that, right? So again, what is the dimension that you want to think about from a strategic perspective? So you got to narrow that down. You can't do everything. You have to know which dimensions you're actually interested in, what topics. So that's first. What topics are you going to focus on? The second dimension that you need to think about is time frame. Because again, strategic thinking is from basically now, or what are we going to do in the next couple of months? What are we going to do in the next iteration of the product, to decades or centuries, right? You can think about mining asteroids. You can think about terraforming Mars, right? What are some of those things that could be super long out there? Question, of course, again, is, where do you want to think? Are you a strategic thinker in the next year or 2, 5 years, 10 years? What do you think? And again, figure out what you want it to be and where your current ecosystem is. Most of the time, I'm going to say from a corporate perspective, they want it to be sort of far enough out that it makes a material difference, but close enough that you can do something about it today. And a lot of companies, unfortunately, operate on an annual budget, things like that. So again, you need to think through, okay, what is your current ecosystem and what is the dimensions of time that they want to focus on? So again, that's first. What's your topics that you're interested in? And then what's kind of the general time frame that you're thinking about from a strategic perspective? Once you've kind of narrowed that down, there are 3 questions. And again, strategic thinking at its core is actually very, very simple. Not necessarily easy to do, but very simple to think about. There's only 3 questions. 1, where are we now? 2, where do we want to go? And 3, how do we get there? And that's it. If you think about those and you can answer that for your target topic and time frame, you will actually be a very good strategic thinker. So let's look at those in a little bit more depth. So first question, where are we now? What does it mean to think about strategic thinking in that context? What you want to do is look at the current world slightly differently than everybody else, because one of the challenges is the world is the world. We do what we do. The processes are the processes. We just operate normally. So can you identify what's not quite right about today? So when people talk about strategic thinkers, one of the things that they tend to look for is, do you see today differently than everybody else? And what they really mean often is, can you see the problems? Can you see the opportunities? Oh, this process is very slow. Oh, these groups don't work together. Or this product functionality doesn't work very well. So can you think about today and find the opportunities in the current world that are ripe for change? So that's how you think strategically about, where are we today? Where do we want to go? Again, this is about creating ideas about what the future could look like. And again, this is where, again, you pick your topic, you pick your time frame, but it's just about coming up with ideas. I think here another point, as you come up with these ideas, they need to kind of resonate within the organization or the ecosystem that you're working on. So that's part of the game, is somebody is judging whether they think you're a strategic thinker. Goes back to what problem are they trying to solve, right? Which is the macro theme of all of these videos in my next level crash course is, what are the problems that need to be solved, and then how do you address them? So again, coming up with ideas of where do we go, that's part of this strategic thinking and thinking about the future. So where are we? Can you find things that aren't quite right today? And then where could we go in the future? And then oftentimes the hardest one is, how do we get from A to B? And this is where, again, when you think strategically, how can you bring assets to bear? How can you get people involved? How can you actually sell this idea? Can you actually gain some momentum? Those are the kind of things that you need to think about as a strategic thinker in terms of how do we get from A to B. And as you can imagine, each of these pieces is all about idea creation. So you want to think about brainstorming. You want to do some more research into, how do I come up with ideas? How do I look at mental models? Are a great thing to Google. There are ways to kind of apply concepts to other concepts, and sometimes that sparks some really interesting ideas. So idea generation is kind of the key underlying skill that you need to think about. But again, strategic thinking, where are we today? Where do we want to go? And how do we get there? And to be honest, you can actually be a strategic thinker by focusing on only one of those questions. If you can do all three, wonderful, that's great. That's probably where you want to get to eventually. But you can be considered a strategic thinker based on focusing on, where do we want to go? What's wrong today? Or coming up with creative ways to get there when other people have identified those two things. And that's kind of it. This is a simple framework, but something you can think about. So first, again, what is strategic thinking to you? What are the topics that you want to focus on? And what is the time frame? Narrow it down. Okay. Once you have those, try to answer the three questions. Where are we? Where do we want to go? And how do we get there? And if you want this to be part of your brand, right? If you want to be seen as a strategic thinker, the next question is, how often do you come up with ideas that resonate with others against one of those three questions, right? And so what you want to do is build this into a habit, which is the last video I did, where you kind of come up with ideas on a regular basis. And if you can do that against any one of those three questions, again, you can focus on one or the other, you will build this brand of being a strategic thinker. And that's it. So I hope that was useful. Again, focus on strategic thinking, go through those questions, learn more about idea generations, and it'll make a huge difference in strategic thinking as part of your brand. There you go. So that's it for today. As usual, if you want some more in-depth videos, you can go to my website, drewsaur.com, and sign up for my mailing list or my free next level crash course at drewsaur.com/next level. And again, try it out. Hope it's useful, and I look forward to seeing you next time.